Hello, today we will talk about knowledge. Basically, what is knowledge and the field of epistemology and what that is. So, we'll ask what is epistemology, we'll discuss three sorts of knowledge, and then finally, we'll conduct a philosophical examination of propositional knowledge, a form of knowledge that philosophers often talk about. So, what is epistemology? This is the study of knowledge and belief, as well as the processes by which statements are known. So, some of the main questions in this area are what is knowledge? How is knowledge distinct from belief? Do we know anything? And how can we be sure that the world is really like what we take it to be? So, the first two questions we'll kind of answer in the rest of the lecture, and then the last two questions are skeptical. Well, I mean they don't have to be, but some answers to the questions are skeptical. So, do we know anything? Some skeptics say no. How can we be sure that the world is really like what we take it to be? The external world, skeptics say we can't know. So think of the Matrix, right? Like Neo, before he receives any revelation about what the Matrix is, he thinks he works in New York City, lives in an apartment, he's a hacker and computer programmer, and none of that is true. In this respect, I guess in the simulation, you might say it's true qua simulation, but the real world is not like the simulation at all. New York City is destroyed. The robots are controlling human beings and using them for energy, that sort of thing. And really, Neo's, lying naked in a pot of goo. Rather than living in an apartment. At any rate, the latter two questions they really deal with skepticism. So there are three sorts of knowledge that philosophers distinguish. One is propositional knowledge, knowledge of facts or true propositions. So the cat is on the mat is a proposition, and it's true if for the mat that's in view that the cat is on it, right? So if you know that the cat is on the mat, however you do know it, if you know it, then it's you have propositional knowledge that the cat is on the hat. Acquaintance knowledge is being acquainted with someone or something. You have personal experience of them. So someone might have met Barack Obama or Donald Trump, and so they have some acquaintance knowledge of those individuals. And in fact, propositional knowledge and acquaintance knowledge are distinct. You can have propositional knowledge without having acquaintance knowledge, and you can have acquaintance knowledge without having propositional knowledge. So these really are two different sorts of knowledge. For example, maybe you've never met Donald Trump, but you know that the following claim is true. Donald Trump is the current president of the United States of America. So you have propositional knowledge about Donald Trump and the United States, and even though you don't have much acquaintance knowledge with Donald Trump, so you know certain facts about him, but you haven't been acquainted with him in terms of personal interaction or experience. Also, you can have acquaintance knowledge of someone without having much propositional knowledge of someone. So suppose that you meet someone on the street, you say hello, you talk about the weather. Now, you have learned some things propositionally about this person, that on this day they were out on the street, that on this day they were wearing, such and such a shirt, but you don't know much about them. Maybe you didn't even learn their name. You don't know where they were born. You don't know what their line of work is. You just said, "Hey, it's a nice day, isn't it? Look at the sun." Feels pretty good. So you have acquaintance knowledge of this person, but not very much in the way of propositional knowledge. So these are distinct forms of knowledge. Then there's how-to knowledge. This is just a skill or an ability. For example, you might have bow staff skills or nunchuck skills, or you might know a language, right? In the sense of being able to use it. You might be able to work on a car, change the oil. This is all how-to knowledge. Now, propositional knowledge certainly is distinct from how-to knowledge and vice versa. So you can have propositional knowledge of something without having the how-to knowledge. So suppose that you're not very mechanically inclined, but you're interested in, reading and learning about things in general. So you read a manual on repairing cars, and you've never even seen a wrench. Never have touched a carburetor, never been under the hood of a car. So here you have propositional knowledge about, say, how the engine works and how it fits together, maybe even how to fix certain things. Propositionally, you know it, but in terms of skill, you're lacking that. Maybe if someone handed you a wrench and you try to, work on a car with it, you just propositionally you know how to do it, but like you're fumbling about because you don't have the how-to knowledge, the skill that's related to, maybe changing the oil or whatever. You can also have how-to knowledge of something without having much propositional knowledge of this. So, like the prodigies. There we go. I was just trying to think of the word, child prodigies, who can at 5 years old just sit on a piano bench and just start playing Mozart or Bach or something like that. They hear it on the radio or they hear it online, and then they can just play it. Now, maybe these people, they've never had a lesson in music or piano, and yet they can play these really complicated pieces. So they have how-to knowledge of playing the piano without having the propositional knowledge. Like you might say, "Where's middle C?" And they have no idea. They might say, "Play an F chord for me." And they say, "What's an F chord?" But they can play an F chord, they just don't know it's called an F chord, right? So these three forms of knowledge are distinct from each other. You can have one without the other. And now we're going to focus on propositional knowledge. Now, we want a definition of knowledge that's appropriate. It's appropriate, or let's say satisfactory. It's appropriate or satisfactory if it captures all and only cases of knowledge. Thereby, not leaving anything out. Any case of knowledge that is left out of the definition, or not including something that doesn't count as knowledge, right? So that would be an adequate definition if you capture all and only cases of knowledge. Let's look at three proposals, each one better than the other as we go along. So number one, someone might say, well, maybe knowledge is just belief. If you believe something, then you know it. That can't be right. So believing something is not enough to know. It's not enough, or we might say it's not sufficient for knowing it. So, maybe you believe that Santa Claus is real, and in fact, Santa Claus, spoiler alert, Santa Claus doesn't exist. Hope I don't get any bad reviews on Rate My Professor for making that claim. So you believe that Santa Claus exists, but Santa Claus actually doesn't exist. And so while you believe it, you don't know it, right? So belief is not enough for knowledge. But I would say that it's necessary for knowledge. Belief is necessary for knowledge. Like you can't know something unless you believe it. You can't know something unless you believe it. So you can't say, I know, you can say it, but you'd be wrong. You might say, I know that Donald Trump is president, but I can't believe it. Now, you don't strictly mean you can't believe it. You mean something like, I'm in shock. I don't know what to say. Donald Trump is president. I just can't believe it, right? But if someone asked you, wait a second, like, do you affirm the proposition that Donald Trump is president? And you would say, oh, well, of course I do. It's just like I can't fathom it. I can't, just how did this happen? Sort of thing. Yeah, we might sometimes speak in ways that suggest that you can know something without believing it. But I would claim, and philosophers have claimed, traditionally at least, that you can't know something unless you believe it. So while belief isn't enough for knowledge, maybe belief is crucial or necessary for knowledge. So let's look at another proposal, knowledge as true belief. Now this is better. Because a belief in Santa Claus on this view does not count as knowledge, and intuitively we think a belief in Santa Claus shouldn't count as knowledge. Okay, so or a belief that Santa Claus exists, right? So true belief actually doesn't go far enough, though. True belief doesn't guarantee knowledge. Why? Because you can have a true belief in something without knowing it to be true. So let's say you just come to believe something as a matter of chance. You're going along and you wake up one day and you suddenly find yourself believing that there are, I don't know, like 10,423 penguins in Antarctica, right? I have no clue how many are there, but so suppose that was the actual number, right? Like you just woke up, you didn't do any research, you didn't watch you didn't watch Planet Earth or something, but you just woke up one day and found yourself with that belief. If that's the number of penguins on Antarctica, that would be true. You would have a true belief, and in fact, you do believe it. Okay, so it doesn't count as knowledge, though. Why? Well, because you didn't come to that belief in the right sort of way. It just happened upon you. You just found yourself with the belief, and it's not based on anything. Is the idea. It's like you got lucky, and I think that any belief that you form on the basis of luck, even if the belief is true, maybe it shouldn't count as knowledge. Another lucky belief you might find yourself with is one that you derive on the basis of a magic 8-ball, right? So you say, will I roll a 7? And then you shake the magic 8-ball and it says, absolutely. And then you roll the dice and you get a 7. Okay, so you just lucked into that belief. We would say like your belief had an inappropriate basis. So we find that true belief, it does not guarantee knowledge, but maybe true belief is necessary for knowledge. Like you can't know something unless you believe it, and you can't know something unless the thing you believe is true. But that's not enough because, like we said, there are cases where you have a true belief on the basis of luck, but we don't want to say it counts as knowledge. So number 3, let's ask if knowledge is justified true belief. Okay, justified true belief. This one is better too. Now, what is justification, or what is being justified? Well, let's just say that you have a reason that is sufficient, or good enough to ground your belief, right? To make it rational for you to believe it. So, if I am looking at the table and I see a cup on the table, and I come to the belief that there's a cup on the table, and let's suppose it actually is true that there's a cup on the table, well, I have a true belief, the belief that the cup is on the table, and it in fact is true. Is that belief justified? It seems so, because I'm viewing the cup with my eyes. And so that counts as like grounds or evidence that's like good enough to rationally support my belief. Maybe I even touch it and I say, okay, yeah, that's not a hologram. That feels like a cup. So then I have a justified true belief. And some have proposed, and in fact, this is a traditional definition of knowledge. You can find it in Plato. That knowledge is just justified true belief. So you believe something, it turns out to be true, and you have good grounds for believing it. The problem is that in the 1960s, this professor Edmund Gettier, philosopher Edmund Gettier, he, gave a counterexample to the claim that knowledge is justified true belief. What are the details of that counterexample? I think I'll just skip the details. And if you're really curious, you can email me. I'll send you the article and a little summary of the article. But what Gettier tried to claim, and people have largely agreed that he was successful or his claim was right, what Gettier tried to claim is that justified true belief is not sufficient for knowledge. So sometimes you can have a justified true belief but still lack knowledge. And his cases are very ingenious and fun to consider. And he gave he gave 2 cases in the original article, and yet the cases have been multiplied since then by other philosophers. Like, it's really easy once you start to think about what we call Gettier counterexamples. It's really easy to come up with those examples. Okay, so that's propositional knowledge, justified true belief. And yet, with Gettier's sort of counterexamples, maybe we need to search for something more or different altogether. At any rate, that's the traditional definition.